Welcome, David, to the Brighton Dome.
Thank you very much.
It just happens to be that this interview is within 2 weeks of George Best being laid to rest in Belfast. What were your feelings about hearing the news and going back 20 odd years? Tell us about how the George Best album came together.
Well, I was obviously very sad, as you are when most people die, and obviously a lot of the people in the country shared my sadness. I think it was a massive, public coming together in a way of celebrating the genius of the man. And I think that was partly why I called my first LP George Best. It was, I grew up in Manchester, so Manchester United were always my team, and being a kid in the 60s and 70s, he was the star of the team. He was obviously a complete genius when it came to football. But also there was that kind of, recklessness, rebelliousness, which, like appealed to like a kid like me. He was a player with the long hair, and his shirt was always outside of his shorts when everybody else's was tucked in, and he was always unpredictable. He never knew whether he was going to, do some flash of inspiration which would kind of, beat a defender, or whether he was going to hurl abuse at the referee, or And I think obviously that's very attractive to a kid, and I suppose if I'm honest, at the end of the day, I thought that the words George Best would be a fantastic LP title. I just thought, and somebody from the NME actually accused me of just wanting to associate the name of my band with George Best forever, and I just thought, well, actually, yeah, I do really, in a way,
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? So, and we came across this picture of him playing in the 70s with, in the United kit, and I just thought, yeah, what a fantastic photograph, that's got to go on the front of the LP.
Did you consult him or his management, or did you just go for it?
Well, the thing is, it's a weird thing. I'm not sure I totally agree with this, but when you use a photograph of somebody, you only have to actually ask permission of the photographer. So we kind of, we licensed the photograph from a photo agent, a sports photo agency. And so we didn't actually have to ask his permission, I don't think. But then we met him because we did a photo session, excuse me. And so he obviously knew what was going on. He didn't, say, what the hell are you doing naming this LP after me? So it was, it worked out okay in the end.
When you met him, did the man live up to the legend?
To be honest, I was so petrified. How many days of your life do you meet a living legend? I was really nervous. I mean, I'm not the most. I'm quite shy anyway, in general life. So to actually meet George Best, what? And to be honest, I kind of left most of the talking to Peter, our guitarist at the time, because he's a bit, he's kind of mad on football, as opposed to me, who's kind of interested. So he did a lot of the talking, and I remember a lot of it was about fishing, actually, because I think George Best was into fishing at the time.
Right.
So I didn't know anything about that, and but yeah, it was an interesting experience.
And just moving now to this last year, the Take Fountain album and the European tour, can you first of all, David, tell us how this lineup came together, the band?
Well, interesting story really, because to be honest, Take Fountain was meant, because I should start from the beginning really. I got this other group called Cinerama who started, because in 1997, this is all jumbled up, isn't it? In 1997, I hope you can edit this out, Frank. In 1997, the Wedding Present kind of went on hold for a few years because I wanted to do a solo project, which eventually became Cinerama, and we did 3 LPs. And all the time it was kind of getting kind of closer to the Wedding Present sound, I suppose, in some ways. And so Take Fountain was meant to be the 4th Cinerama LP. And then during the kind of the process of putting songs together and playing them live and stuff, it just became more and more apparent that actually it sounds more like the Wedding Present than Cinerama, because Cinerama was very orchestral. It was kind of, I suppose the idea was basically it was a pop group which had kind of filmic music influences and stuff. So like John Barry, Ennio Morricone. Those
Which
kind of
was your
people.
favourite John Barry track?
I really love Diamonds Are Forever, actually, the Shirley Bassey song, and we actually covered that. Devil of a song to cover, actually, because all the chords were, because John Barry, of course, is a classical composer. So when he came to pop music, he kind of had this classical approach, and then when we came up with about 12 chords or whatever, and suddenly it's all these E suspended diminished sevenths and all that. It's a nightmare. But I think it's a great piece of music, and all those Bond themes. I mean, I think they're all really exciting. I think is genius, really. So, as I say, in fact, there's one instance where, as Cinerama, we were doing a session for the late John Peel at the BBC in Maida Vale, and I've done loads of sessions over the years for Peel. But even the engineers there were saying, David, this is the wedding present. You come in here, you call it Cinerama. Where's the strings? Where's the flute? Where's the trumpet? It's because in Cinerama we had a lot more kind of extra musicians and things. And I think the kind of game was up then. Really, I thought, actually, yeah, you're right. This is we're back to kind of guitars, bass, and drums, which is how the wedding present was always kind of made up. So we just decided eventually, well, let's release this as a wedding present LP because it's going to be less confusing to people and ultimately less disappointing, I think.
How long have you been writing? Take Fountain, how long was that album in production?
I think it usually takes a year and a half, a couple of years from the end of the last LP to getting out the old piece of paper and a pen and starting writing the new one.
And the lineup that you went on tour with, how long's that been together?
Well, actually, that was essentially Cinerama.
Right.
The guitarist Simon Cleave, who was who played at this concert that we filmed, actually was in The Wedding Present as well, but he also was in Cinerama, and then the bass player was in Cinerama, and the drummer actually was in Cinerama, so it's kind of like a version of Cinerama, really, that became The Wedding Present.
And it was quite an arduous tour. I read that Simon Cleave collapsed in Rennes. Is it hard work?
Well, it's not like being down the mine, is it, being on tour? People do say it's hard work, but at the end of the day, it's, you sat in a van. It's not the hardest job in the world. Right. You get to a venue, okay, you have to carry your gear into the venue sometimes, if there's not people there to do it for you. And you play a concert, you play songs to people. I mean, to be honest, I can't see why people would actually see that as hard work. But I suppose there is an element of drinking and not eating properly and not sleeping properly and all that kind of stuff, which, if you're not careful, I think it can.
And Simon recovered from that one thing, did he?
Very quickly, yeah. I mean, we were, he collapsed in France and he went to hospital, and you always fear the worst, I suppose, because you say, oh my God, what's this? But then he came out with a clean bill of health, and they just said, take it a bit easier and stuff. So I think it was a case of him just, burning the candle at both ends, really.
Just returning to Take Fountain and the way that you write songs, I was interested that the one song, Ringway to Seatak. That was written in the plane?
No, God, no. I can't write anywhere apart from home, really.
Right.
People always say, on this tour, actually, people have been saying, have you written the next LP then, David? And I think, when? I can't, I'm really envious of those bands who can actually write on tour, because it must save so much time that you can actually, just get the guitars out in the sound check or whatever, and knock out a quick hit. But all my stuff is done at home, really, so that I can do it without people, hearing it in its formative stages.
Did the idea come during the flight?
No, actually, I mean the whole LP really. I hate the word concept LP, but I kind of split with my girlfriend, and just prior to actually starting writing that LP. So the kind of general theme of that record is really someone who splits up with his girlfriend after a long time, and then gets the opportunity to go and live in America for a while. So it's kind of escapes to Seattle and meets someone new, and it's kind of the story of that, really. And Ringway to SeaTac was just you're literally about getting on the plane from Manchester Airport to Seattle Airport and starting a new life.
Right. Talking about the set list, was it difficult condensing 20 years into 1.5 hours?
I wouldn't say difficult, I'd say completely impossible, to be honest with you. Absolute nightmare. I've kind of given up, really. It's very difficult for me, because somebody said, including covers, there's 200 songs now or something, and so you're kind of picking 10% of those, which is thankless task at the best of times. And you kind of want to be fair to each LP and think, well, this was a good LP, so we should have a song off there. But this was a different LP, and this should have a few songs off. And this set list was actually put together by Simon. So,
Right.
and I think it's kind of good in a way because he was never in the Wedding Present from the very beginning. He came later on, so he's got a different view of the old songs to me. So, whereas I, would see it as more nostalgia, I think he would see it as, okay, actually that's not that good a song, but that one is, so we'll have this one. And I think that's probably, it's good to have that objectivity sometimes.
Yeah. And the first number was Corduroy and the last number was Heather, which both from Sea Monsters. Is that your all-time favourite Weddo's album?
To be honest, I don't know what my all-time favourite Wedding Present record is. It depends what mood I'm in, really. I think if there's one thing I'm proud of is the fact that all the records have their own kind of style and sound, and we've kind of moved on every record. So something like Sea Monsters is very dark and very noisy, very guitar-y, and then you got Watusi, for instance, which was actually more like Cinerama in that it was quite pop and a bit kind of retro sounding. So it really does depend on what mood I'm in. I think Saturnalia I always liked, which was the last LP we did before the Cinerama years, as they're now calling them. Well, I am actually. I don't think anybody else is. And I think I quite like that one because it was almost like a greatest hits. There was a bit of George Best on there, there was a bit of Sea Monsters, and there was a bit of different. It was the first self-produced LP, and it brought together all the aspects of the group we kind of investigated so far, I think.
Right. I read somewhere that you're always very concerned that one album should go to one extreme, and if it goes to that extreme, the other album should explore another extreme, very much contrasting between albums. Is that still the way you approach it?
I'm not sure it's a concern. I think it's kind of the natural way we do it anyway. I think as soon as you finish a certain type of record, you want to move on and do something different. And I think I suppose musically you tend to go to the next extreme because that's the easiest way of getting out of one mindset, really. Okay, well Watusi, for instance, it followed kind of guitar-y music, and really it's not that much for guitar albums, so we thought, let's throw away let's put away the guitar pedals and the distortion, and let's think about how bands did this before they had distortion pedals, let's try and achieve some kind of dynamic in the songwriting. Right. And again, Cinerama was born because of that as well. It's okay, I've kind of been in a kind of classic rock and roll lineup guitar group for God knows how many years, and I want to try something different, really. So it's just the way we do it, really.
Right. And now, sort of heading back to the roots of Wedding Present in Leeds, you and Peter were both teachers. Can you tell us how? No, that's a rumour, is it?
It's funny. It's weird because loads of people do think I was a teacher. I'd like to set the record straight now. I've never taught in my life. I'd be completely opposite, to be honest with you.
Right.
So
a source for that was Martin Strong, the encyclopedia, and it refers to both you and Peter as ex-teachers. So I
thought it must be somewhere prominent where it says that, but because loads of people have approached me with that. But no, he was a teacher.
Right.
But I was on the dole, to be honest, when we started the group.
Right. And when did you decide to go full time? What were you sort of thinking of career-wise?
Well, I think it's hard for me to answer that because in a way, I've always wanted to do this. I've grown up, being a kid in the 60s, 70s, thinking that one day I'd like to be in a pop group, and I never really imagined that it would actually happen. So I kind of went through the rigmarole. I was quite good at school at maths, so I did university. I did maths at university, and I had friends actually who in Manchester who went on to be formed a band called the Chameleons. I don't know if you know them, but they achieved some success and they had a PO session and they signed to Epic Records, and I think that kind of inspired me in a way. I thought, well, actually, it can be done, if you put your mind to it. So I left university and then I was on the dole for a couple of years, but it was kind of, I wasn't sat at home doing nothing. I was building the group. We were getting people in the group, and we were doing demos and things. And it was all aimed towards actually releasing the first single. Was that Lost Pandas? Yeah, it was Lost Pandas. Yeah.
Right. So that was the nursery group for the Wedding Present in a way.
To be honest, it would have been the actual real group, but the drummer and the guitarist at the time, left and went to live in America. So we kind of, I mean, we didn't really start again, but it was a real watershed, and we got people in, and it changed really quite a lot. So we thought, well, it's, you know, and to be honest, I never really liked the name of Lost Pandas. I always thought it was a bit of a stupid name, but at the back of my mind, I always wanted to call the group The Wedding Present.
Why's
but
that?
I was, well, I just thought it was a great name for a group. I always thought it was quite a strange name, you know, and I quite like the weirdness of it, in that it sounds more like a film or a play or a book or something. And I thought it's kind of inappropriate for a pop group, and therefore, quite good in a stupid way. But at the time when I thought of it, there was a band called The Birthday Party who were kind of going around, and I thought, it sounds a bit too close to that, really. And I think if I come up and say, here's my band, The Wedding Present, people are going to say, you just copied The Birthday Party. So I kind of shelved the idea. I kind of forgot about it. Thought, okay, we're never going to be called The Wedding Present. Let's be called The Lost Pandas. And then when they left, at that time, I think The Birthday Party had gone by then. So I thought, well, actually, The Wedding Present. Yeah, that old name in the past there. So we used that instead.
And in the 70s, what was the best thing about the 70s musically for you, as a kind of influence to take on into the 80s?
I think there was loads of great things about the 70s, actually, because listening back now, I think it was a really great time for music. I think fundamentally the best thing for me was punk, but I've got to say that, as a kid, I quite liked chart music. I quite liked, glam rock when it came. Mud, Slade, all those bands. I thought they were fantastic. And I was just getting into kind of Genesis and Yes, and I didn't dislike that kind of music. But then suddenly punk came along, and I thought, wow, this is good. The Sex Pistols and the Clash and stuff. So I think I was, to my dying day, I feel quite fortunate that I was actually a teenager when punk came, and as a result, I was part of this kind of new massive youth kind of cool. I mean, I didn't look like a punk rocker or anything. Don't get me wrong.
You're a maths student.
I was a specky maths student with my mum's jumper on. Well, not my mum's jumper. She knitted it for me. So, but the music really inspired me, and to this day I hate the guitar solo because of punk. Right. It came along and said, actually, let's just make a racket. We don't have to be that proficient as a musician and stuff. So, right. And I think that really was a big influence to me.
And how did you get the first deal with the indie label Reception?
That was actually our own label.
You set up your own label? Right.
When we did the single, Go Out and Get 'Em Boy, the first single, we actually, I think it was a demo tape at first, rather, before it was a single, and we just sent it out to loads of people. We met labels and got rejection slips back from everybody, really. And then so we thought, let's just do it ourselves, and right. we saved up our dole checks, or Peter's teacher's wage slip, I suppose, and paid for it ourselves, only 500 quid. And we went on to form our own label, Reception Records, and we had a deal with a local distribution company, and we actually did all the first singles and George Best on that label.
And then how did you come to the notice?
Well, as soon as we kind of got a bit successful, we had talks with a lot of major record labels.
Did they come to you?
Yeah, they did, really. I mean, we were, I suppose we got the ball rolling with Reception Records, and we were quite happy, doing that. And well, then we got invitations to go, come to London and meet Polydor, or come and meet, CBS or whatever. And we met them all, and it was always kind of, you felt a bit patronised. It was kind of these people saying, "Okay, you've done very well so far, lads, but sign to us, and we'll change a few things here, and and we'll get you this, and we'll get you that, and you'll move up a level, and you kind of think, we're quite happy, actually. I'm very proud of the records we've made. I don't feel like we need any particular advice to move on. So we kind of said no to it. Well, we didn't say no. We just didn't. I suppose the meetings never progressed into a position where we thought we'd sign until we met RCA Records, and the A&R person there we met was called Corder Marshall, and he had a completely different view of The Wedding Present to everybody else we'd met, and he said, okay, if you sign to RCA, carry on doing it exactly as you want, and we would put the records out. And we said, well, will you put that in a contract? And he said, yeah, we'll put that in a contract. So, and that coincided at a point where the distribution label that we were not signed to, but it was kind of they paid for the records basically. They were in financial trouble at the time, so we thought, okay, well, he's offered us a way out of here of that as well. So we signed to RCA.
And the Top of Pops experience and just basically becoming a chart band, was that something that you'd envisaged earlier on? Is that something you were heading for?
I wouldn't say we were heading for. I think it's never been my ambition to be on Top of the Pops. But having said that, it is one of my favourite programmes still.
Really?
Kind of a love-hate thing, though, isn't it? You kind of you want to watch Top of the Pops, and then you think, oh my God, this is so much rubbish on this programme. Why am I watching this? But at the same time, again, I grew up listening to that, watching that programme. So, I guess there was some satisfaction about finally being on there.
But the first time that you appeared there, you refused to mime, or your lips. Is that a true story?
Yeah, well, the kind of.
Tell us the background to that. Did they know that that was going to happen?
Well, no, not really. I mean, it started off because we did a video, and the song was called Brass Neck, and we kind of played, and it was kind of. Basically, there's dancers around us. It's a famous dance troupe. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's kind of like very aggressive and people moving around. And we kind of stood deadpan in the middle of it, while these things were going around. It's a great video, and I just thought, well, obviously on Top of Pops we're not going to have the dancers, but it might be nice to kind of carry that theme of just being, I can't really be bothered to be here kind of look, and we did, because obviously at Top of the Pops you're there all day. You rehearse it a few times, and I thought that at some point the director would come over and say, actually, come on mate, what are you doing? You can't, but he didn't. So I was kind of getting more and more extreme as the day went on, and thinking, well, get away with this. And eventually it was, I was completely motionless throughout the performance. But it's pop music, who cares really? It's funny. Yeah,
and the album Ukrainsky, how did that come about? What was the plan?
It was actually, it's called Ukrainsky Vystupa v John Apila, and the reason it's called that is because that actually means the Ukrainian John Peel sessions.
Right.
And the guitarist in the group at the time, Peter, was actually of kind of partial Ukrainian descent, and he had a lot of interest in Ukrainian music. Most of it, I must admit, it's very boring to me. It's very folky and it's very miserable and slow. But he played me the odd thing, which actually, well, A, I really enjoyed it, and B, it's kind of stuff you've heard. It's kind of these classic themes that you've heard in films and you've heard in your music, traditional music. And I just thought, we could have a go at this ourselves and just do a version of it and see what happens. So we kind of got a few mates in who could play weird things like balalaikas and violins and things, and we did a Peel session, and it sounded amazing to me. It sounded like something I couldn't believe I was part of this. A very minor part, I must say, because I just stood at the back and played my acoustic guitar and shouted "Oi" every now and again. I left all the complicated bits to Peter and his friends, but so we went on to do a couple of sessions, well, 3 actually, Peel sessions, and they were compiled on this album, which it was supposed to be released on Reception Records, but that was at the time when we signed to RCA, and they went, not Reception, the Red Rhino, who were the company who was supposed to distribute it, went under. So RCA brought it out, and it was our major label debut, which is quite strange, really.
And Bizarro, there was hits there, and you were becoming a hit songwriter. Is there one songwriter that you've studied, or being a mathematician, did you approach songwriting in a very kind of precise way? Do you still do that?
People always say there's a link between mathematics and songwriting or music, and because I think you can actually do a degree in mathematics and music. I didn't, but apparently you can. And I suppose I can see that to a certain extent. I think there's a certain kind of inspirational, start to songwriting, but then a lot of it is very methodical. Putting things in the right place, making sure they sound good, and it's very logical, I think, rather than mathematical. But I don't know. I kind of grew up listening to the radio, and I think I've always been slightly obsessed with music. And there's loads of songwriters from the Beatles, through Burt Bacharach and all those people, Motown, and then, as I say, glam rock, punk, I wouldn't like to pin it down to one particular songwriter.
Right,
I don't think.
right. And then when Bizarro came out, after that you were introduced to Steve Albini for the Sea Monsters thing, and people, your fans, were sort of quite surprised by this choice of producer. What did you learn from Steve Albini?
Before we worked with Albini, I was always slightly disappointed with the records. I always thought, Bizarro and George Best, they're kind of okay, but they never really captured the power of the group. And we'd have these rehearsals, we'd play these concerts, and it all sounded really big and powerful. And then we'd get the record back and think, it's kind of an approximation in a way. It's not a true representation of the sound of The Wedding Present. And then I heard Surfer Rosa by the Pixies, which to this day is probably my favourite LP of all time. And I just thought that band there, with Albini's production, sounded absolutely spot on. It was the sound of musicians in a room playing their instruments, and all the enchantment and all the weirdness and all the beauty of pop music was in that record. So I thought, that's the man for us, really.
Right.
And I think we were right. I think Sea Monsters is the first record where I came back and thought, actually, yeah, this does sound like The Wedding Present now.
Right.
And it just became more three-dimensional in a way. And there's nothing particularly. I know people say, what's his trick? What's his his particular what does he do to make you sound like that? And to be honest, he doesn't do anything really. He's the first to admit he's essentially a recording engineer, but he's just a very good one. And I think he just manages. He gets the band with great sounding equipment in a great sounding room with great microphones. I mean, it's all obvious. Just go to the best every time, and you're going to get a good result. And as long as the band's rehearsed and the songs are good, it's going to be a good record, really.
And apparently Sea Monsters took 12 days to record compared to Bizarro taking 6 weeks. So
Exactly.
he's obviously a very efficient worker as well.
The Beatles, they took a weekend, so 12 days is actually a bit, a bit long, really. And Albini actually said that, because I think we allowed like 3 weeks, and he was going, I can do it in a lot less time than 3 weeks. So we were going, well, let's just keep it on hold just in case, because we were, just, as you said, just recorded Bizarro a couple of years ago, but it took 6 weeks. So we thought, already it's down to 50% of that time, and it was finished in 12 days. So, it just shows you don't have to waste. I mean, people spend, bands spend a day getting a snare drum sound, and you think, no one's going to even notice how that sounds in the final thing.
Right.
Obviously the engineer will, the producer will, the band will, but their friends won't even notice.
How do you like modern technology?
The thing about modern
Fountain, was that done very modern technology, right?
Well, to be honest, Cinerama was a great user of modern technology, because I can't arrange strings. I've not had any musical training and stuff, so I can't arrange in the classical sense. So I had to learn how to use computers and sequences and samples and stuff. And Cinerama kind of exists because of modern technology. And then we went on to use some of that in Take Fountain as well, but not quite as much, because it's, as I say, it's more back to a kind of a rock and roll band lineup. But it definitely assisted me in, for instance, writing music for a string quartet, because I could use samples of real string players and I could play it on the keyboard, and it worked really well. But it's a double-edged sword, of course, because it means that the same technology exists, which means people don't buy records anymore because everyone burns their mates these days. Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword, really. I mean, it's cheaper to make music now, but then it's harder to actually sell it to people. So.
And you did a very interesting selling idea back in '92, where you achieved a Guinness Book of Records fame for releasing 12 singles in 1 year. Was that your idea?
I think it was actually Keith, our bass player at the time. I think it was his idea, but it was one of those things where it was, I think he was the collector of those, I think Sub Pop, and actually Rough Trade did a single of the month, a 7-inch single of bands on their labels, like a little collectible series, and I think he just said, why don't we do this? And I thought, why not? What great! It's one of those ideas where as soon as somebody said it, you kind of think, there's no going back from this, really. We've got to do it, because if we don't do it, we're going to be so disappointed. And within about 15 minutes, we had all the ideas. It's going to be 7-inch. All the sleeves will match. It'll be the first Monday of every month. We'll, do a video for each one. We'll have a T-shirt for each one, and we use different producers and engineers through the year and stuff. So.
But it was 7-inch vinyl, wasn't it?
It was all 7-inch vinyl, yeah. And then at the end,
do you mourn the demise of 7-inch vinyl?
I think the 7-inch singles kind of is the ultimate pop format. Yeah, I mean, probably not anymore. I suppose it's MP3s now. It's not well, but I don't know. Something not particularly very romantic about downloading a computer file onto your PC, and when I was a kid, you went out and bought a 7-inch single and came back and played it. Makes me sound very old, I know, but to me that's pop music, really.
What was the first 7-inch single you went out and bought as a kid?
Two Little Boys by Rolf Harris. I'm afraid to say.
What was the second one?
You Sexy Thing by Hot Chocolate. But the third one was I Just Can't Help Believing by Elvis Presley, and that one is still fantastic. Oh, You Sexy Thing by Hot Chocolate's not bad, I don't think.
Right. When you've done cover versions, you did Steve Harley's Come Up and See Me, and
we've done loads. Yeah.
Sorry,
we've done loads. I mean, all the B sides of the 1992 12 singles were all cover versions as well. So
some of them are not sort of totally what you expect. Like It's Not Unusual, Tom Jones.
No, yeah.
Whose choice was that?
To be honest, it was kind of. I think we always have this problem with cover versions, because you always think, okay, let's do a favourite song, or let's cover your favourite bands, so, and I think it can get a bit predictable. So I think it's always good for a band to look further afield, if you like. And Tom Jones is actually was my mum's favourite singer as a kid, so we had it blasting in the house all the time. Well, I have Tom Jones or the Carpenters, and we covered both of those actually over the years. So I think it's just ideas like that, really. Fly into it sometimes. I mean, with at this concert, we actually did a cover of the theme tune to Twin Peaks, which I think is my favourite wedding present cover. It's one of the 1992 B-sides, and I just think it's a fantastic piece of music. And I think it's called Falling, and I think the original version, in a way, it wasn't very David Lynch. It was very synthesizey, and it was tuneful, but there was no darkness there. And so I think our version adds a little darkness to it, which I think, hopefully he'll hear it one day and sign me up to score one of his films.
And Take Fountain, that is something you're touring now, also for the beginning of 2006, is that right?
Yeah.
And then what are your plans after that?
To be honest, I've got absolutely no plans after that. I've always felt that planning's for architects. That's one of my little catchphrases, and I think pop music, pop musicians should be kind of. I hate those bands who say, we've got the 3-year world tour, and we're going to be up till 2008 doing this, and then we're doing that. And I think, where's the spontaneity? And I always like the idea of not knowing what I'm going to do next. So, come the summer of 2006, all the concerts of this particular, tranche will be finished, and I'll be free to do whatever I want, really. So, more Cinerama, more wedding present, write a book, retire, who knows.
And are you writing songs at the minute?
No, we're not actually, no, because we've just been too busy on tour. So as I said before, we don't really write on tour.
And I read somewhere that you've got an acoustic gig coming up in a week or so. What kind of material do you play at that?
Well, I've not thought about that yet, to be honest. I mean, it was actually in the village. It's a village where I know the bloke who runs the chocolate shop, and he's organised this concert, because it's late night shopping in Alfriston in Sussex, and at the local pub they're having bands on every Friday, and I think on the night when I'm playing, they're having the Chicago Jazz Band. I think they're from Eastbourne or something, but they're all about 90 apparently. So he says they're going to have a break. So would I be go and fill in? I said, yeah, why not? So it'd be interesting to see.
Wedding present songs done unplugged, or be a busker?
It's me and my acoustic guitar.
Right.
I've been learning Merry Christmas Everybody by Slade, which is possibly my favourite Christmas song ever, so I'm going to give that a go.
Right.
Apart from that, I guess it'd be a few wedding present songs, a few Cinerama songs. I don't know, to be honest, at this time.
we began with the passing of a legend, George Best, and I'd like to end the interview also with the passing of a legend, that's John Peel. Can you just sort of say how you found the guy and what he did for you, and how you remember him?
It's hard to describe how I feel about John Peel, because he was so fundamentally important to me. I mean, I've grown up listening to that programme, and people always say to me, "You must feel very lucky that John Peel plays your records on the radio." And obviously, I was very fortunate, but at the same time, it's kind of obvious in a way, because he kind of shaped me in a way. All the music that he kind of played to me over the years of me listening to that programme inspired me to kind of send it back to him in a way. And I think it would have been very disappointing. Well, not think, I know it would have been very disappointing had he not played it in a way, because I'd have thought.
But he described you as the greatest songwriter, rock and roll songwriter of your era. That's in print somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't exactly that. He slightly misquoted in there, but I can't. I've written some of the greatest. What was it?
Some of the greatest
love songs of the rock and roll era. Yeah. And obviously I've got that on my wall at home, because he faxed it, because we had to use it in an advert once. And no, obviously, it's very flattering for someone to say that about you, regardless of who it was really. But I was devastated when he died. I truly still can't believe it almost. I'm so used to hearing that voice coming out of the radio, playing those records to me, that it just feels weird that he's not here anymore.
Thanks very much for your time.
You're very welcome.
We've got a Christmas tree. I'm chargeable almost.
Our special guest on what is essentially a jazz evening with Leo and the crew is our good friend here, David Gedge. Now, some of you are going to say, who he? But I can see quite a few others know David. And I've got to keep this brief because I have studied off his own website every intimate detail about this guy. 20 years ago he boarded a coach from Leeds to London, 500 records in it, formed his band called The Wedding Present. Here we are 20 years later, so heck, he's been around nearly as long as Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. Right, still doesn't look a day over 30. Tell me how he does it. He's had 18 top 40 records. He's appeared on the John Peel Show, God bless him, 14 times. And he's a good guy. David. Practicing that all day. Mind the hops.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening for the introduction. Jessica, you have to change things. It doesn't sound right. Exactly. The levels. Tell me what.
Hey John, can we put some in the barrel and get a few?
This is a song called Always the Quiet. Hold on. Help at the doors, an accident grew. My hand touched yours, you smiled. My voice sounded unsteady, it's because by then I was already beguiled. As the rain beat down outside, there was no
things you do. You're bound to love quiet men, and if we meet again, how I'd actually speak to you. Here's the funny part, I wouldn't know where to start. That's 'cause I'm always the quiet one, you've already gone. So won't you walk away? I'll waste my whole day imagining the things you do. How you're bound to love quiet men, and if we meet again, how I'd actually speak to you.
Back in England. He's a shifty looking character. You wouldn't trust him, would you? God, blimey. Well, as you could probably guess from this sign, we're now in Manchester. At the Academy, which is part of the university, I think. And here's our dressing room. Hello, who's in here? Phew, it's a bit smelly.
What about the ones in the lobby?
No, those are the ones that are. I can't use the phones in the rooms at all, because those are just credit card phones. Oh, well, having said that, maybe if I put my credit card in, I just get charged for the toll-free number.
Oh, that's possible, yeah. Might just be the 50p connection charge.
Oh my god, what's all this? There. Where are you going? A dodgy bloke, that. Manchester Academy, as I say. It's a bit big here. The band are preparing for the concert. This is the view that the You've got a little bit. You're a bit early, aren't you? You're normally here after the doors are
I've been
open.
here and back.
Oh, there you are. Very well, thank you. How are you? This is good, isn't it? Ooh. Come inside.
I thought I heard you on the opposite side.
There you go.
Be the vote code as well, is that right?
And the anthem for the south.
Okay, well,
I might put the girls in that box.
Way down there, love.
Yes.
Right up to it. Tell Terry she's missing the art.
So as if we haven't seen it loads of times.
Cheeky.
Robbie thing.
Newcastle United here for you, Chris.
You've never seen anything like it.
It makes me feel sort of quite weird. I was like 14.
No, it's not.
Oh no! You got a flash of cleavage?
Yeah. What is it tonight, David?
That's spontaneous. It's the mighty Wee, it's the mighty Morgan, it's the mighty Darren. Triple whammy.
Where are we playing though?
Lincoln Bungalow.
Bungalow. Bungalow.
track. I think coloured lights look good.
Or just having very few lights.
I'm not sure, 'cause I don't know how it attracts, you know, it's hard to say.
I know, but it's up to us. We can have whatever we want.
No, I know, but...
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you know, don't shoot me down.
I just don't know enough about film to know how it's going to look.
I'll say it was fun. That was a mistake because it was film as well, it's not video.
Yeah.
And they were saying that it needs to be really light. It's going to come out quite dark on the film. And we were going, are you sure? Yeah, definitely. It came out really light.
It's been a bad experience. But
It's just that
it wasn't bad.
last pop video, we went back 10 years ago, not 12 years ago, it was really light on stage. And it's because they were simply compressing extra light everywhere. Oh, keep it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Cafe here, but wasn't sure what the food situation was like, so for future reference I'm going to check. Are you ready to go in the van, you two?
Yeah, let's get in the van.
Okay.
Let's need to get into the van.
Okay.
Oh my God!
Oh. It would have been better had you not got your head in the way there, Jessica.
You walked around my head.
Oh, you people live like animals in here. That's not good.
No. Okay, let's start.
I took it upside down and went like that. I suspect it was Simon. It was all over my seat. And when he went back.
Yeah, he said we live like animals.
Yeah, he definitely was.
Definitely live like animals.
Yeah, but he does too.
Hey, me?
No, not you. We're not talking about you.
Why not?
Oh my God.